Okay. Welcome to Blythedale. A little prop behind here. They're all good.
All right. Please tell me who you are and what you do.
Well, we've met before. I wear many different hats. Okay, my name is Rosemary Williams. I am professionally trained as a teacher of the visually impaired and an orientation and mobility instructor. But over the years, I kind of specialized in special needs children, and so I also have a certification in special education.
Oh, nice.
Yes, in this particular job, I've been here 32 years, and the job is split 0.5 teacher of the visually impaired, O&M, 0.5 special ed.
Okay.
So I wear two different hats here. That's why my office is a mess. It's full of needs for every possible spectrum of a special ed student.
Nice. What brought the toddler cane to your attention?
Well, meeting you and knowing your research and hearing you speak at conventions and personally, I was aware of your passion and also feeling passion about movement and children. I was always, my attention was grabbed from the first time you spoke about this topic. Toddlers and early childhood is an area of education that I feel I have gravitated toward, and I've got some experience in that population. So especially in the last 10 years, I seem to have been, as my assignment here at Blythedale has been primarily with our preschool population, so age threes and fours, and I've gravitated to that naturally. I feel like that's where I become the best teacher that I can be. So I appreciated that. And then as in the last few years, there has been an increase in the number of visually impaired preschoolers that we've had here at Blythedale. So it seems that I'm spending the majority of my allotted time in the preschool classroom. Currently we have 6 children with cortical visual impairment, so I just took the course at the Perkins School for the Blind to hone my skills working with that specific population. And in December, this one particular client arrived in our preschool program, and she had all the characteristics of a cortical visual impairment. She had been diagnosed. The parents were looking for a program that could address those specific needs, but she also had extensive therapeutic needs. She's very tactily defensive. She won't explore things with her hands. It's hard to get her to hold an object with her hand. She doesn't reach out into her environment. This particular child has no speech, so communication is a challenge, and as that is just emerging. But her strength was her ability to walk and her passion about walking. So here's this child up and moving through a chaotic environment. And so I joined forces with a physical therapist to work together to come up with how do we address her lack of vision and get her more mobile. And our goal initially was to get her to walk safely from point A to point B. Well, we quickly realized that we were not in control. This is a self-directed child, and her walking and exploration is only on her terms, so we cannot tell her where to go. So through a course of 5 months, we've been observing where she likes to go, and I think that's the best tool for children. Watch them and learn. Don't try to teach. Watch and learn. So it connected with me. My goodness, this is a child who is exploring her environment and cannot see. This is the perfect candidate for a toddler cane. And so I reached out to you, and within a week, the packet arrived in the mail. We measured, and within the next week, voila, the toddler came. So we started, I believe, in February, and so minus health, which has caused some absenteeism and juggling everyone's schedule, we have gotten this child to the point where there is no resistance in putting the cane on. Initially, we had that as a hurdle to get across. Now it goes on seamlessly, and she never, even though resisted getting it on, she never was agitated with the cane on her. she seemed to be oblivious from day one. As soon as we got through the turmoil of getting it on her body, then she was up and running. The initial mobility required hands-on contact for security, for personal safety, but this was a child who longed to walk but was fearful. So in some of the earlier videos that we submitted, she was clinging on to the therapist. And what we didn't video is as much time as she was on her feet, she was in the arms of the therapist. So we would walk 3 minutes and then meltdown for 10. Walk 4 minutes, meltdown for 8, you know. So this was also a progression, just the tolerance of her whole new environment. And of course the CVI played a huge part in that. The sounds. Oh, this is something that didn't show up on the last tape. Initially, this was a child whose hands were on her ears for every sound or interruption in the pathway. So that has decreased to the point where I would say it's now non-existent. That it was not observable today. In the last few weeks, it has never happened. Now we're seeing more of her. This is the happy me and her signs of joy, because that's where she gets the most, is exploring her environment.
Real kid-like.
It is very kid-like. And now it's kind of natural. Now we still have that goal out there in the distance of getting from point A to B so that walking is purposeful and functional. And we see that on the horizon, but right now her purpose for walking is to get to light, and that's where she goes. We see it in the videos that Mom provides from her home travel, and we observed that this morning in the session that you just saw. The gift is exploring now as a 14, 16, 18-month would. You know, going from ricocheting from point to point to point in her exploration.
Yeah.
The most wonderful benefits is the collaboration. You know, in this particular case, we've worked with the family. The mother spends a lot of time here, and we've got communication with her face to face. The sharing of the videos has been an important thing in this process. But the collaboration with the physical therapist, because the child still has some physical motor skills that they've been skipped. In talking with the physical therapist, this is a child who does not have a comfortable sit. And so even in the classroom, she needs to be in an adaptive modified chair to keep her body in proper alignment, to form good sitting habits. This is not a child that can go from floor sit to stand. This is not a child that can kneel. So you have this safety issues of the potential of a fall. She would not be able to catch herself to prevent an injury, and her defense mechanism is to arch backward. So initially we were fearful of her falling and hitting her head. So safety first in all aspects of mobility, especially children.
Right, and which we saw a little bit of improvement today in terms of
the improvement. There's been recent absences, and there was a 2-week period where she was absent, and but it's funny because she doesn't. Initially, she would have lost ground, early on in this process. Back in February and March, if there was an illness, then we would have to start over behaviorally, start over with how much she could tolerate, start over with getting the cane on. But now those things are seamless. But at this point, after a 2-week absence, we are continuing to see progress. We didn't take a step backwards in that absence. She came back, made the adjustment back to the routine of the classroom day. I might add that this was a child whose feeding and elimination and nap schedule did not match the 9 to 2:30 time slot of a school day. And so there was a lot of getting into this new routine that had to take place. And the overwhelmingness of life for a child with a cortical visual impairment was a big hurdle in the process. And for this particular child, that kind of extended the adjustment period. And this was a child who screamed instead of napping. And we all knew if she would only go to sleep that she would feel better.
Right.
And now she does.
Wow.
So everybody works better after a power nap.
Absolutely. Wonderful. All right. Anything else we should mention?
Well, I mentioned her joy in movement. And isn't that what every mobility instructor wants to see in their clients, big or small, is just that joy and the independence and the improvement in self-esteem when you are safely moving through your world.
Any changes that you can think of that we need to look at?
Changes in the physical cane. Do we have it here?
We have it.
We've gotten better, and of course she's tolerating well. I think the length is fine. What we now do is, instead of securing it at the waist, we have found with this particular client that it's better more around to the pelvis area. So we have it down lower on her hips, and then it seems to lock into place a little better. Now, when she comes in contact with an obstacle, she's exploring a lot. As the physical therapist said, at this point, she's now playing around with that "is it still there" concept. And she seems to really love the feedback that the sound gives her. She's having fun with that. The therapist described the threshold and her fear of encountering a textural difference with her feet, and then a fear of going into the new space, like off into an abyss. And what I think initially happened when the cane encountered it, she still had that fear and the jolt back. But now she loves the sound of the cane across that textural threshold, and it triggers to her joy instead of fear. And just as recently in the last 3 days, she would repeat that sound at the threshold. And then today you were fortunate to observe her just cross through, ta-da, and enter a brand new space. So it's funny because the gains, which initially took a month to happen, and then went into a week progression, and now we are seeing day-to-day gains, which makes us hopeful that our long-range goal of the A to B, purposeful movement, will take place. One baby step, one toddler step at a time. You made a believer of me, Grace. Well, I was always a believer, but now I can testify.
Yeah, I can
And I see and I tell you, it's gotten a whole lot of attention here at the hospital. Because we conduct these sessions in a quieter space.
Yeah.
Most children get their therapy in what's called our therapy village, which is set up like a little town.
Oh, how cute is that?
Yeah, and I'll give you the tour. But the little town could have 50 people in it
Right.
at one time.
Wow.
Towns are busy places. With her cortical visual impairment, the sounds were just too distracting for her to be cooperative in any way. So she goes off into a hallway, which is much quieter by Blythedale standards, even though there is traffic coming and going. But that is now our space, and even though she's not doing our purposeful A to B, she has her own A to B, and we can now predict where she's going. And through having this safe space for her to move in, we see what she is drawn to visually. So it's been very informative to me as an educator as
Right.
well, to know how to address her in the classroom with her cognitive
And
program.
it's so interesting because in some way, shape, or form, once she starts to know intrinsically,
Right.
which is the only way you can know anything at her level,
Absolutely.
that she's getting this warning, the vision starts to come out as
Oh,
far as
absolutely.
how can I use it otherwise.
Well, and the research with cortical visual impairment says that movement is one of the triggers for vision, and this child is I mean, it's like textbook.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we discussed this. Initially, she was a light gazer.
Right.
She
No,
is
we didn't.
drawn to light. Okay, so initially, any of her movements, and that's why she also had to be handheld, because her, and forgive me because I can't extend my neck.
Yeah.
Okay, but her neck was way extended, and her visual focus was upwards, exaggeratedly so.
Yeah.
And I almost think that had become a learned pattern for movement, because even in a hallway that didn't have lights generated from the ceiling,
Right.
she was still doing that.
Yeah.
So so the physical therapist and I discussed that this was her learned posture
Yeah.
for movement, and that has been somewhat extinguished. Although today I think it happened. So.
I'll take a look at the video later.
Watch the video, because she did do some upward gazing today.
Okay.
But it has reduced in this 4 months that we've been working with her.
Nice. Well, thank you. And let's take a tour. I'd love to see this place and the village. And
I do have a class in